if you resist now, the impact, the negative impact will be that much harder.
Mm.
Before you could resist, and it would continue. Now, if you resist, it gets harder and harder and harder to, because the constant up is higher, and that we can't go back down to where it is that you wish to remain. So each stage has an integration, a slight integration. Each stage raises you. You must let go. You can't stay here if you don't.
Lee Mudway, what a joy, what an honor, what a pleasure once again it is to speak with you, brother, and GPMS co-founder and guardian, and what a joy it is to be part of this exquisite divine instrument. And today, as we chatted last time, we decided that we were just going to kind of go off script and see where the energies take us, and see how the overview of your worldview is part and parcel of the divine instrument of GPMS. We'll see how that all unfolds. How is that for you, Lee?
I love it. Thank you so much, sister. Beautiful Sister Renata again. I enjoy it, going off script. That's the way we work. It's
That's
organic
right.
rather
That's
than
right.
scripted.
Scripted. Well,
And where we take,
yeah, I
sorry, go
always
on.
say we didn't come to Earth with a manual. So you know what I'm saying? Or with a script.
We write our own. So where we go with this one is gravy, and I enjoy. We've just been speaking a little bit prior to the record button pressed, and beautiful Renata has got loads of questions, and I got no clue as to what they are, and this is the way I much prefer this. So yep, let's see what happens as we delve into whatever's been given to you, downloaded to you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brother Lee, for your patience, for your forthrightness, for your clarity, for your transparency, and I can't wait to rock on with this. Okay, so I kind of got a whole bunch of questions this morning, as I was saying to you, just in between sleeping and waking, and I really want to understand basically the fabric of reality and what that means to us as humans. Who are we as humans? Are we the off-worlders come back in a new timeline to correct our past boo-boos? Are we truly a genus called human? Have we been genetically modified? Who are we? Seriously, who are we? Over to you.
Okay, so let's start with the easy one then, eh? um, let's
Hey, it was
let's
going to be
let's
easy.
let's dig into this slightly. And you're asking some questions there that are fundamentally designed on matter and material. Who are we? The question more prevalent and more prudent is what are we? But nevertheless, these things come in. I'd like to also talk about the word human or man.
Mm.
I'm there's a few things that can be said with the regards to I am no longer human, and many people may have a misrepresentation of that. But I'm gonna define human or man as primal, as a beast, as the lower emotional spectrum, what we would understand as the fear spectrums, the pride negated aspects are what a human represents at this point. Now, that doesn't describe the upper echelons, the love and the complexity and the empathy and the compassion. Acceptance and courage is also a human trait, but it's a higher human trait. So we've got a lower trait and a higher trait. This is what I would describe as more human, but it's not prevalent yet. In the human construct, a lot of it is more in the negative fight, flight, survival mechanism, more primal, more innate, more an alarm. They are, that's not strictly true. There's a survival mode ongoing, which is where a lot of humanity exists. And it's inside a negative, distorted environment of blame and materialism and externalization. So whilst we're talking about what our human aspects are, let's look at the energetic representation of who our human aspects are. Let's look at the energetic representation. Mm-hmm. We've got a reactive state, or humanity has a reactive state, which is subconscious and run autonomously, generally based on past experiences and stored within the field. We'll develop this as we go forward. Mm-hmm. But it's a reactive state of defense and survival. That's where many are sat right now, and they react to situations. The higher representation is a responsible state, a responding state, an overviewer, an observer, not a reactor. So we've got this lower, weaker version of the masculine and the feminine, and then we've got the higher aspects of the masculine and the feminine. So when I say that I am no longer human, I do not carry any of the reactor, the externally controlled state. It's all an internal, higher version of the older versions. So just to put that in quickly, there is a reactive state and there is a non-reactive virtuous state. One is less than virtuous and can be prescribed as that. Neither of these are right or wrong, but one is a non-virtuous or less than virtuous state, and the other one is honoring your virtue or your divinity, and that's where you grow up from. Mm-hmm. So what are we? Is aspects of creation, light, fractal representations of creation, experiencing creation. This is on a infinite scale. Each individual that has a soul is an aspect of the all, is one with the all at a certain point, but in their fractal representation inside creation, inside wherever it is they spend their conscious time, that's the representation of the all. So they represent the truer aspects of creation itself. When we look at what is the truer aspects of creation itself, we get into an area of philosophy which is not known. It's not known exactly what that is in this frequency. I'm not going to give you a definitive answer because we just don't know it. All we can do is allude to it. So that which creates the universes, that which creates matter, that which designates matter, God, is the how would I put it? The coda of the energy which represents itself in physical form. Mm. The representation then in the physical form is of God, but experiencing the physical. And then this can be an infinite form of the function of the creation. The creation is the function, what it does, and the form is what it looks like. And so you've got trillions or infinite amounts of aspects that are carrying a form, but the function is expansion. Mm. The function is experience. The function is growth. The function is unity. The function is continuous amplification of creation. We could look at it philosophically and say that since the energy of creation is infinite and there is no time there, there is no thing there, so there's no time, then time is irrelevant. Infinite creation, infinite energy of creation with no time means it didn't start and it doesn't finish. It always has been and always will be. So then we can look at, well, creation itself must have started somewhere. Well, it couldn't have done if time is irrelevant. So right. Creation always has been and always will be. There was no start, there is no finish. It always has been and always will be. And therefore, infinite creation exists. Everything that could be created already exists. Otherwise, there's a time for it, and time doesn't exist in the representation the other side. So we're in this area of what seems paradoxical debate about when things start, what's this, new creation, new timelines, as if they aren't already there. Because we perceive of them in linear time, we don't allow for the timeless. And inside the timeless, everything by definition already exists. But we believe it's new when it comes here, or it's a new thing, or these things are, yeah. But this is where the human logic limits the logic from the human that's in a lesser lack, that wants to understand, wants to fully comprehend, to feel comfortable, starts to limit what that can be, because it goes into the extremely grand, let's say. So there's limitation put in it by the mind of those trying to understand it, as opposed to the release into, I don't need to, I can accept it. And therefore I don't need to know exactly what it is, but I can imagine what it could be. And of course, let me just give one more
No,
thing
no,
with
go
that.
ahead. I deserve it. I deserve it for asking that kind of a question.
Again, I'm referencing the energy, not necessarily the question's point.
Yeah, yeah,
But let's see
exactly.
whether this comes back to what the mind can conceive. See, conceptual thought, by definition, if you can conceive of it in this density, it's not the answer. If you can bring it into reality and go, well, this is what I can conceive of, the answers always lie in that which is inconceivable. The next truth is inconceivable when you're holding on to this truth.
Mm,
This must be the truth. But then,
mm,
oh, now I realize it wasn't. It was something else.
mm.
But it was always inconceivable. So that which we work towards, we could never conceive of when we think we already know it. So the mind has got this way of saying, well, that's all it can be, because that's what I can conceive.
Mhm.
But then you can release that into, well, the answer must be in what I can't conceive. If I could conceive of everything, I wouldn't be here. I would be God there. If I had all of access to everything, then I wouldn't be here. So therefore, by definition, what I can think of is limited. I can release that into the unlimited. And this allows for everything to be questioned at its fundamental basis. Are you sure? And that brings it down to its core value. So I don't know if that answered your question, or went alluded to it, or went around the bushes.
Oh
But
no,
I've
it's fine. We're just
had relevance.
there's like 10 things that have sprung up from what you're speaking about, right? So this is how we roll. So with the question of human, I thank you for that, and it makes a lot of sense, of course, and it's a paradox because it's an evolution through time, though we're timeless. So it's this constant re-evolution, I guess, is one way of kind of saying it. Number two, I understand that when the original, again, we're always talking these timelines, so I don't know if I'm making any sense whatsoever. However, I understand that at one point humans were called human because when they came to see us originally, we glowed. We had a hue about us, which is what they had to dumb down, which is the genetic engineering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, manipulation, domination, blah, blah, blah. Then I wanted to remark on the concept of the inconceivable and maybe move on from there, and the non-reactive essence of the human, which is I'm just, my conjecture is an aspect of the Christ consciousness, and that inconceivable aspect. If we can open ourselves up to it, I'm talking in like circles, but I know you're getting me. Is that based on faith, and is that the overcoming of resistance? Because resistance was one of the questions I wanted to talk about. Over to you.
Yeah. Let's talk to the inconceivable, the human. See, the hue being the light, and the man, but let's just make it man. Even if you want to put womb man in as well, it doesn't matter. Let's just call it man. Now, there's a reactive primal predator, or survival mechanism inside man, an instinct, innate survival, and there's the loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic higher versions, the love, the pure versions, the higher. If we look at the fifth dimensional aspect, which many will be aware of, let's say, where this ascension is going from the third and the fourth dimensional, hell, into the heaven, the fifth. We could look at that barrier between the fourth and the fifth as self-accountability, self-responsibility, integrity, courage. So we could look at the fourth dimensional as pride and a drop into pride, and we can look at the fifth dimensional as courage and then a rise into love and compassion and empathy. So effectively, it's the same thing. What exists here is the primal version, the lesser, what some call human, and what exists here is man. Without that, the primal traits are still there. The energetic values that are around emotion, shame, blame, guilt, and these fear aspects, they're still known within the vessel. They're still, but they're not felt. There's no feeling to the emotion, and it has no impact. It has no storyline. It has no timeline inside I. It is just a gauge, a register of that which is what would be seen as almost like the non-virtuous actions. And then there's the virtuous actions. It's just the mirror opposite. So it doesn't have any impact. It's just a gauge of the experience or the energy around at the time. It gives you a comparison. And in the middle is your fifth dimensional aspect. So as we rise forward, everybody will move past this period of integrity, releasing their fears, their resistance, and going more into acceptance. Now, it's to what degree you go into acceptance that we're talking to here, but this is an upscaling then. As each layer of release of the fear mechanisms have been undertaken by many, so will their growth into trust and into faith. There still needs to be trust and faith here, but it amplifies as we go up. You grow more and more into this trust and faith, which would be very similar to one saying that they're embodying their divine authority, or they're embodying their higher aspects. They're enlightened. Enlightened, have more light. B, feel lighter, but also have more options, more perspective, more courage to delve into that which is unknown, delve into that which is inconceivable without fear of what it may show. Because the shame has been dealt with, because the shame and the lower densities, lack of responsibility, lack of accountability, blaming others, has been harmonized. When you see things that make you revisit yourself, there's no fear of shame. There's no fear of self-rejection. There's just assimilation, integration, and calibration. So we're watching this in real time. Now, I know the words I'm using are quite the same words that you were using, but I believe that you understand how those two align in kind of what you were saying. Now, I'd love for you to continue what you were saying because it'll make focus what I'm saying. So take what I've just said and give me the next
exactly. Okay, well, so now we get all this man stuff, and how do you reconcile that with the timelessness that makes my brain hurt, because again, you're touching on that inconceivable. So it's, how do we, I guess my question is, how do we live our day-to-day lives knowing that, okay, yes, it's an evolutionary process, but how many times have I been through this evolution? Is there such a thing as time, and what does it actually matter in terms of the overall? Because just going to keep doing it over and over again. And why do we constantly have to keep doing this over and over again if that's what's happening?
It's not. As we spoke about in the first one, I disagree with evolution. It's devolution. This has been a devolution. It's been a descent, not an evolution from what was into what we are now, but a devolution from what we were into much a lesser version, a dimmed light. That's not strictly true. But the experience, for those that have gone through it, reconciliation doesn't work. You can't put into perspective, or certainly I can't, reconciling 1,000 lifetimes of the same suffering, of the same torment, of the same lesson. That doesn't make any sense. If you're putting it into an evolutionary soul progression, we needed to do this because that's what the soul, this is a school, this is what we've been. No, It makes no sense to reconcile that into your consciousness and say, I did it because it was required. The same lesson's never required 1,000 times. You only need to do it once, as long as you understand it and learn from it and change your actions. Once is enough. So this isn't that school. This is a hellscape where ones were imprisoned and went through a tumble dryer of the same cycle over and over and over again, whilst being told that it was for their own good. This was never agreed by the soul. There's been massive soul contract violation and universal law violation by those dark ones here that have been maintaining this repetitive loop.
Exactly.
This is not evolution. This is not soul journey creation. This is a inversion, a satanic inversion
Right.
of the physics of creation. It's draining of the energy of physics of creation. It's not to evolve you, it's to devolve you into a lesser version of yourself. This is what's been experienced by many souls that have been here. Now, where we are at this stage is the upliftment, the removal of that which is unnecessary, unwanted, and undesired, non-virtuous from this experience back to the original versions or the higher versions of the human or the man, which has been lessened by this approach from the demonic realms of the darkness down here in this third, fourth dimension, this quarantine area. These souls did not choose to be here. I know this will go against many belief systems, so be it. There was a fall of frequency and souls were trapped in that fall of frequency or misplaced or whichever words you wish to use. And that's where they've been ever since with Gaia, the Mother Earth planet. And now she's going back up to where she was prior. So all that's happened in this drop and back up again will be released from historical and all existence because it doesn't need to be reconciled. It can't be reconciled. You can't make the illogical, the antichristos, into logic. It is inverted. It is upside down. We can't turn that round and create reason and justification for it. It needs to be removed and released and seen for what it is, inversion and unnecessary. So we are in this process right now of release of these false concepts into the inconceivable. What if it's not evolution? And what if it's devolution? And what if we never chose any of this? And what if it was all impacted upon us? That's inconceivable. Yeah, but I wonder if that's more likely to be the truth. I wonder if it's more likely that this was imposed upon souls to drain those souls of their life force for the dark ones to have fun with and abuse. And actually, this is divinity taking those which are light, taking those which are love back into the heaven on earth scenario. And the only ones that are refusing, or there's a lot of resistance to this process, is by the actual souls believing the dark lies, believing their own belief systems, which have been fed to them by these dark ones, which wish to keep people in the dark and wish them to remain their food supply and their source of fun. The same brothers and sisters who are higher divine beings choosing to deny that aspect because it's inconceivable. And what they can conceive of is their belief systems, which have been fed to them by these darker aspects. So the idea of evolution from my story, everybody can take what they wish, is a complete inversion. This is a complete and utter inversion of that devolution. And the upgrade, the uplifting frequency now is a remembering. It's not new information that's coming in. It's a remembering of what already was. So as we move forward, we rise what seems to be up, but it's more that we are embodying more of the truth. And this way you let go of the lower versions because they're unnecessary. They become part of the background noise. They're certainly not the drivers anymore. They're unnecessary. They're registered, but they're okay. They're what they are. There's in the deep bases there's distortion if you want, and in the higher purity there isn't. And as we embody more of that higher frequency, we have more options, more light, more divinity, more authority, more truth, more core, more more perfection through the imperfections that we witness. We move, what is it? Everything is perfect moving towards completion, or everything is perfection moving towards completion. So through the imperfections, we refine and then find the next imperfection and refine, and then the next one. But all of this is in line with virtuous actions, and all of this incorporates the true divine nature to which all of the beautiful souls on this planet are, as much as they may deny it.
Mm-hmm.
So resistance is a funky one. It comes from denial, it comes from shame, it comes from pride, arrogance, resistance to that which can't be, the ego, the I am, which is working from a place of lack, wishes to be relevant, wishes to be right, wishes to prove others wrong, wishes to blame. This is resistance. This causes resistance to higher concepts, which may make one rethink their lower concepts. But because they're so stuck on them, they've created such a comfortable area there and so used to it. The higher ones can't be seen. They can't be understood by the ego. The lower mind, the weak masculine, the weak human version doesn't understand them, and therefore rejects them out of hand, to maintain its relevance, to maintain its existence. But the same weak aspect can be the strong aspect, and release control. The same, it's, the holding on to what you think you are. You do it up here, but you hold on to what you know you are. It's not it all changes. But I don't want to let me shut up. Let me be quiet.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, there's just so much. So, yeah, it's again, we're moving into the realms of the inconceivable. I mean, how do we know who we are if we've been in a state of devolution then? So I wanted to move into the idea of the gifts that we have that are slowly coming back online, I guess, if we're going to follow your line of thinking, such as telepathy, bilocation, interdimensional travel, all of those things, a more collective approach to living, where the compassion rules. We're not so much fixated on the individual ego, the dualism, where we're more in in a construct where we know innately in our hearts that whatever we do to our brother or sister, we do to ourselves. And the concept of understanding as opposed to understanding, also language itself. How much does it impede our understanding, understanding? So all of those things, run with it. And how that applies to GPMS at this point. Go for it, Lee.
I've forgotten your first bit. It's like a machine gun.
The inconceivable part, like how we, like the all the different gifts that we have innately that are coming back online, because you say we're growing. If we're into, like, if we're reversing the devolution, that means that what we had is coming back online, right? So
let's take that first.
Okay.
Let's take that first.
Okay.
And let's just look at this with subtlety rather than with huge detail. Lots of people want to see, telepathy. I want to be able to, or biolocation. Let's do it. I must be able to see this now. But the fact of the matter is, we're not fixed in space and time. So a lot of this can happen without us seeing it. It's subtle. It's much more subtle. Your environment didn't change, but doesn't mean to say you didn't change space and time. So we can exist in different realities, although the environment around us doesn't change, because the environment's the same in different realities. It's just the overall energetic changes. So a lot more of this is more subtle at this stage. And what I would suggest to anybody is, anybody that can now see a representation of themselves in their previous, where they've forgiven themselves, where they've released blame, where they've released an anger, when they've grown in their own frequency, they've raised up from a place of despair, or they've raised up from a place of fear into a place of understanding that fear was never real. There is a gift. Each one of these is a layer of a new experience, a new frequency. People fixated upon what toys I'm going to have and what we'll have. But that's later. This is about experiencing the subtlety and understanding that this is nuanced. It's not something you get given. There you go. You use that tool. No, it's something you grow into slowly, subtly. And over time, you may ask a question, what does telepathy mean? But by the time you actually understand a little bit more about telepathy, you realize you've been doing it for 6 months. You've already, is that what, well, I've been doing that. So the question is more important than the answer. You get the answer later, but it already represents itself in what you've been doing anyway. So a lot of this is to give an answer is to defeat the object of the nuance, to represent your uplift as baby steps, to see how you've walked your walk, how you found your path, and how each one of those is aligned to lift. And now each lift is giving you more sight, and more sight has given you more options, and more options has given you more release of control. You've gone more and more into the inconceivable, which caused you more and more fear earlier, but now you're moving towards it with more and more faith and more trust and more grace. You are walking with more grace, but you're looking for the gifts as if grace isn't a gift. The release of the fears isn't a gift. A lot of the things that get denied over here in the experience as we're moving through this aren't necessarily seen as gifts because you've already got them. But you've already got all of the gifts. You just remember them. So it's going to be the same with all of the rest. It's going to be a walk into whatever else it is that you truly are, and you represent via your frequency and your aspect. It will come back to you. It's inevitable. This is not something you need to seek or to understand. You already know it, understand, or even understand or overstand. You already overstand all of this because it's what you truly are. It's just the aspect here doesn't believe that because it's what you think you are. And again, this is the holding on to the higher. I am everything.
That's right.
I just don't remember it. So as we move forward, we remember. And it's like, well, that's new. No, it's not. It's old. It's very, very, very old. And you already overstand it. It is already you. It's not you here. So as we move forward again, a lot of subtlety involved in the energetics of progression with this, up until a time there may be a divine snap and a lot comes back. But that relatively isn't going to happen yet. To some, they may have had glimpses of it. They would have been given a glimpse, but it's not what they can utilize all the time because it would destabilize the whole lot. For instance, with Rick, he said about walking on water to Father, and no, and a levitation. No, that can't happen yet because it would destabilize a lot more.
Exactly.
But of course, that's all, that's all usable, utilitarian, but not yet. So, yeah, I'd like to take it back into let's have a think about what it is that we're talking to here and missing subtleties, missing miracles, because we're looking for bigger ones. And therefore a lot's missed underneath. Keep going. That's part of that anyway. That's part of that question.
Yes, and so I don't know if we're going to get back. Well, we'll eventually get back to the other part. But as you were speaking, I was wondering about. I've always had an innate approach ever since I was in my even late teens, because I was always a teacher of music or a musician, or now with the energy with the bubble work that I do. I never look at somebody as less than perfect and complete. What they have are resistances, and what they have are elements of themselves that no longer serve them. And then the frequency of the bubble, the transmission, allows them to release those things over time. So the essence of the being is always perfect. So it's like peeling away the layers of the onion to reveal the perfection that's within. So it's not something that we ever have to bring or search for, because it's already within us, right?
Yeah. And I don't look at it necessarily as an onion anymore. I look at it as representation, fractal representations on layers. Again, onion's fine. It's the same thing. But at the core of the onion is the pure. So I tend to look at on an up.
Exactly.
I tend to look at on a line up. At the top is the pure, and this is a distortion. No, the other way around.
Right.
it's still this is what they truly are, what, not who, what, and this is what they think they are.
Right.
And if I don't represent their truth, if I don't represent my truth as the pure, the energy into them, that's prejudgment or a lessening of their true value.
Yeah.
So I agree with you totally. I just call it equality. I
Right.
see everybody as equal, and then they represent themselves. And from that representation, you can see, and I don't call it as restriction, I call it a limitation
Mm.
or a distortion.
Hmm.
So you can see the limitation within the presentation or the distortion within
Or
their
resistance.
presentation.
Yeah. Resistance.
Uh, Resistance, yes. And therefore, assist or guide by interjecting the solution energetically into what you would call their bubble, their field. And then over a period of time, they can integrate that, reconcile and integrate, or deny and continue in a loop. So we
Exactly.
interject a higher truth, which allows them to integrate that and calibrate that higher truth. They take that away with them in their field. If that is then not self-introduced or self-induced, they will go through another series of events where they get impacted by negativity and then receive the same information again, and
Hmm.
off they go again.
Hmm.
And then they come back, and this can continue for a
Yep.
number of times,
Yep.
or
Yep.
once.
Yep.
It depends on how quickly you can accept another's perspective and refine your own belief systems or your own thinking. But this is about core values. This is about what you are, not who you are, not who you believe yourself to be, but the truth that you are a divine being, and carrying that worth. You are worthy of that. Therefore, you are worthy to forgive yourself of everything that you thought you weren't. So
Hmm.
all of the
Brilliant.
previous experiences prior to your understanding that you are a divine being, you can forgive yourself because you're worthy of forgiveness because you are the forgiver.
Hmm.
You are the father, you are the mother, you are the forgiver, you are the ultimate redemption. But if you don't think that you're worthy, then you won't be able to forgive yourself for what you've done. And then this will represent it in the present, and destabilize or restrict your ability to forgive and to continue forward. So this is where we get these spirals.
Wow.
But the spirals are comedian. Um, they're in one's own experiences, they may find that the spirals may happen over a period of years and years and years, and nothing moves, or that was their old experience. But the spirals now are Archimedean. They're Archimedean in their screw shape. What they do is Archimedes, it's like it rises every time. So it goes up and then dips and goes up a bit higher
Ah,
and
I see.
dips a bit higher, goes up a bit higher and then dips a bit higher. So it's always moving upwards. So this bandwidth that we're in is on a constant increase.
Hmm.
So it's not a spiral in here that maintains its level. No, it's constantly raising, which means that if you resist now, the impact, the negative impact will be that much harder.
Hmm.
Um, Before you could resist, and it would continue, 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 continue. Now, if you resist, it gets harder and harder and harder to, because the constant up is higher, and that we can't go back down to where it is that you wish to remain. So each stage has an integration, a slight integration. Each stage raises you. You must let go. You can't stay here if you don't. So on that higher level, this is what's happening with the collective macro consciousness on a human level. Each is undergoing this. Very, very few understand necessarily what it is they're doing, but many have a clue. Many have
Hmm.
a concept.
Hmm.
And all of those stories are playing out inside timelines, inside belief systems. And we're trying to focus the collective divinity, not trying to, we are focusing them into a more core value, which creates a smoother path.
Yeah. Whoa. Yes. Well, I can. It's. I have so many things to say. Oh, there goes my earring. It decided it didn't want to be here. Okay, fine. Just stay there then. We are perfect in our imperfections, right, Lee? Yeah. There we go.
Absolutely, I love it. If the earring doesn't want to
I'm
be
just
here, if the earring's bored, so be it.
okay. I wanted to say how the bit of a paradox for me, because I did earlier ask about the role of language, right, and how
Oh,
much the spelling, right, the English, especially English, can impede our understanding. And then I'm sitting there listening to you speak about this, the forgiveness and where the Father, and I'm brought to tears inside. And so there's the paradox where the language can still be used to describe beautiful, beautiful concepts. However, there are entrapments within it. So I'm trying to assist myself and all of us who are listening. How do we reconcile? Because most of the people who are listening to us are English speaking. So how do we reconcile this impediment, shall I say, this potential impediment? I'm curious to see what your thoughts on that are.
so language, the words that I use are through intention. They're not, I have my own definition for every word I use or we use. Now, a lot of the times I don't necessarily understand or know what the other will perceive that word to mean.
Mm-hmm.
Nor do I, because it's their perspective, not mine. So again, I will give my perspective with the word that I choose to use and define it using my own intention, the purity into which it's meant. And then another may receive it and say, well, I don't agree with that because I don't like this word. Okay, good. Let's have a chat about the word. Let's find a word we can use. So resistance, restrictions, limitations, whatever. Let's find a word we can use. Brilliant. Now we can create an agreement on what does the word mean. Rather than disagree with the whole thing because I don't like that word, we can now, oh, that's what it means. Now I see what you mean. So that common ground, but that comes from a question, which you said this, what did you mean? And that takes courage when one's mind is saying, I don't like it because they've just said that word and that word is incorrectly spelled, or I've got a different idea on it. Rather than jumping and reacting with that concept, just hold on, you said this word, and can you explain what you meant by it? And then we can agree. And that agreement is the key. So it's an agreement to what the words mean. Now, what you're talking to there is you can hear my orating of this in English language, but you know the intention behind it is to only use the language as a descriptor for a larger thing, which we can't really describe. We're just trying to paint a picture. So it's like colors on a paint, and each color is being used on a canvas, or musical notes in a score. Each word is being used as a color representation or a musical note on a score. It's not got a distorted meaning. It's just got an agreed understanding, a sound, a color, a reference. We're using them for reference points. The concepts that others come in is that the word is important. No, the intention is important. The overall picture is important. The word is a detail. It's a tiny little detail, and the devil is in the details. We are not devils. We are creators of the larger picture. The devil enjoys the detail because it finds semantics and argument and nitty gritty and micro bitty tit for tats. Well, you said this and I don't like that. But what about the bigger picture? So the bigger picture is always lost when we look into the detail. Now, asking a question about the detail to confirm the bigger picture, perfect. But negating the bigger picture because you don't like a detail, limited, restricted. We can come back to this for that if we wish. But GPMS for people being stuck on detail and not seeing the overview of heaven. I put in a thing, do you want heaven on earth? Well, not unless you can tell me about how it will look and exactly what will happen in every minute of my day. No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, so you want the detail, not
Control.
the overview.
Control.
The overview is frightening. The
Mm-hmm.
overview fills you full of terror and full of fear because now you're going to be lost in it. But you are the overview. The truth is you're limiting yourself to believing you're the detail, and that's where the devil, the wording, the devil is in the detail. That's where you feel safe and comfortable arguing, but not agreeing. And so let's discuss and debate meanings. Good. Let's discuss and debate whether that blue looks better than that blue, or whether that crotchet on that semi-breve or whatever it is on the musical score is as beautiful as this one.
Yeah.
But that doesn't defy the whole symphony. So the more that we can discuss the symphony, the more that we can keep the symphonics open, and the less the detail, the better. And just use the words as pictures. But people get stuck in this area. So hopefully that got somewhere near to answering about what the words mean. They are meaningless. We create the
Absolutely.
meaning for them.
No, yeah, totally. But this again, this was something that was this is another layer of the imposition placed on humanity with this, because it is a spell casting, which is it's just been another layer of the, contempt for humanity that was displayed as far as I can see. Now, you mentioned
Before we continue, I'd just like to give a backing for
go
that,
ahead,
because
go
on the
ahead.
other